Welcome to Poirot Stories. I'm Preston Flint. Settle in with a cup of tea, my friends, as we embark on another tantalizing tale from the world of Hercule Poirot. Tonight's mystery is Death of the Sculptor at Violet Square, a classic Whodunit in the style of the incomparable Agatha Christie. Picture 1920s London, where the fog rolls through the cobbled streets of Violet Square, a quaint artistic enclave in the heart of Mayfair, lined with elegant townhouses and studios where sculptors and painters ply their trade. It's a place of beauty and intrigue, where marble statues gleam under gas lamps, and secrets lurk in every shadow. Chapter 1. The Invitation to Violet Square. It was a crisp October morning in 1925, the kind where the air in London carried a hint of wood smoke and the promise of secrets. In his elegant apartment at Whitehaven Mansions, Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective with his impeccably waxed moustache and an intellect sharper than a sculptor's chisel, sat in his favourite armchair. The room was a study in precision: polished mahogany furniture, a ticking ormolu clock, and a silver tray bearing a delicate porcelain cup of tisane, an herbal infusion that soothed his fastidious digestion. The morning's Times lay open before him, its headlines ignored as he savoured the quiet. Poirot, you see, cherished order and method, and this moment of repose was a rare treasure in a life so often interrupted by the chaos of human folly. The tranquillity shattered with a sharp knock at the door. George, Poirot's impeccable valet, entered with a deferential bow. "Inspector James Japp of Scotland Yard, sir," he announced, his tone as crisp as his starched collar. Poirot's green eyes twinkled with curiosity. "Mon ami Japp, so early. This must be a matter of some urgency. Show him in, George." Japp strode into the room, his rumpled suit and ever-present pipe a stark contrast to Poirot's pristine tailoring. The inspector's face, weathered by years of chasing London's criminals, bore a familiar mix of exasperation and hope. "Poirot, you old devil!" he boomed, settling into a chair without ceremony. "I'm in a right pickle, and I need those famous grey cells of yours to sort it out. It's a case that's got the Yard scratching its collective head." Poirot tilted his head, his moustache twitching with interest. "A pickle, you say? Tell me, mon cher Japp, what is this conundrum that brings you to my door before the morning has fully awakened? Is it perhaps a theft of national consequence, a diplomatic scandal, or something more intimate?" Japp chuckled, puffing on his pipe, the smoke curling like a question mark in the air. "Not quite so grand, but devilishly tricky. You've heard of Reginald Thorne, the sculptor? Chap who carved that colossal statue of Nelson in Trafalgar Square? Found dead last night in his studio at Violet Square, right here in Mayfair. Door locked from the inside, windows bolted, tight, no sign of a break-in. Looks like suicide. Poison in his wineglass. Cyanide by the smell of it. But his wife swears he'd never do such a thing. And here's the kicker. The room was sealed tighter than a bank vault. Impossible for anyone to have got in or out." Poirot's fingers steepled beneath his chin, his mind already whirring like the gears of a fine Swiss watch. "An impossible crime," he murmured, his voice soft but laced with delight. "A locked room, a poison, and a death that defies explanation. This is a puzzle worthy of Hercule Poirot. And why, pray, does Madame Thorne reject the notion of suicide?" Japp leaned forward, his pipe forgotten. Money troubles, for one. Thorne was up to his ears in debt. His sculptures weren't selling like they used to. Not since the modernists started stealing the spotlight. But he'd just landed a big commission from Lord Harrington, some Greek god statue worth a fortune. There were arguments, though. Family, rivals, the lot. His wife, brother, assistant, a rival sculptor, a patroness, even the family doctor. They're all at the house now, and every one of them's got an alibi. But something's off, Poirot. I can feel it in my bones. Poirot rose, adjusting his lapel with a fastidious flick. Very well, mon ami. Poirot will accompany you to this violet square. The little grey cells, they demand to be exorcised. Let us see what secrets this sealed studio holds. They hailed a taxi, the black cab rattling through London's bustling streets. The city was alive with the clatter of horse-drawn carts and the hum of early motor cars, their headlights cutting through the morning fog. Violet Square lay in the heart of Mayfair, a hidden gem of a place where artists and intellectuals gathered. It was a small rectangular enclave of Georgian townhouses surrounding a central garden, where violet flowers bloomed in defiance of the autumn chill. Gas lamps cast a soft glow on cobblestones, and the air carried the faint scent of turpentine and wet leaves, a haven for sculptors, painters, and dreamers. Number 7, Violet Square, was Reginald Thorne's residence, a tall, narrow building with ivy clinging to its brick facade. The ground floor housed his studio, its wide windows offering glimpses of marble busts and clay models within. As Poirot and Japp stepped inside, they were greeted by the faint aroma of stone dust and varnish, mingling with the metallic tang of tragedy. In the drawing room, a sombre group awaited, the persons of interest as Poirot would call them, though Japp bluntly dubbed them suspects. The room itself was a blend of elegance and artistic clutter. Velvet drapes framed tall windows, a crystal chandelier gleamed overhead, and half-finished sketches were pinned to an easel in the corner. The tension was palpable, as if the very air held its breath. First, there was Eliza Thorne, the widow. A striking woman in her mid-40s, her raven hair was swept into a short mourning chignon, and her eyes, red-rimmed from tears, held a quiet intensity. Clad in black silk, she clutched a lace handkerchief as she spoke. Reginald was happy, she insisted, her voice trembling. We celebrated our 15th anniversary just last week. He had plans, dreams. He would never leave me like this. Beside her sat Victor Thorne, the victim's younger brother, a bear of a man with a painter's smock splattered with oils. His broad hands, stained with pigments, fidgeted as he spoke. Reg and I, we were rivals in art. Different visions, you see. He was all about classical forms, while I leaned toward the avant-garde. We argued, sure, but blood is thicker than water. I'd never harm him. Amelia Croft, Thorne's assistant, hovered near the fireplace. A mousy young woman of 25, her spectacles glinted in the firelight, and a nervous tick tugged at her lips. I locked up the studio at 6 o'clock, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Thorne said he wanted to work late, alone. He was preoccupied, but not suicidal. Marcus Hale, a rival sculptor, paced the room like a caged lion. His waxed beard and flamboyant cravat marked him as a man who thrived on attention. Thorne stole my ideas, he declared, his voice ringing with indignation. That Apollo statue for Lord Harrington? My design, my sketches, until he swooped in. But murder? Preposterous. I'm an artist, not a killer. Lady Victoria Beaumont, a wealthy patroness, sat regally on a chaise longue, her pearls catching the light. In her early 50s, she exuded an air of aristocratic disdain. I commissioned Reginald's latest work, a statue of Athena, she said coolly. We quarrelled over his refusal to alter the design to my specifications, but such is the way of artists. I was hosting a soirée at my estate last night. Dozens can vouch for me. Finally, Dr. Elias Grant, the family physician, stood by the window. his stethoscope dangling like a badge of authority. A kindly man in his 60s, his white hair and gentle demeanour belied a sharp gaze. "I examined Reginald post-mortem," he said. "Cyanide in the wine-glass, quick, painless, a tragedy, but I saw no signs of struggle." Poirot listened, his head tilted, his eyes darting from face to face as if reading a complex score. He noted the widow's trembling hands, Victor's defensive posture. Amelia's averted gaze, Hale's theatrical outrage, Lady Beaumont's icy calm, and Dr. Grant's measured professionalism. Each, he knew, held a piece of the puzzle, perhaps a motive, a lie or a truth buried deep. "Mes amis," Poirot said at last, his voice smooth as velvet, "we stand at the threshold of a great mystery. A man is dead, his studio a locked fortress, yet death has found a way inside. Hercule Poirot will uncover the truth, for no secret can hide from the order and method of my little grey cells." Japp clapped him on the shoulder. "That's the spirit, Poirot. Shall we see the scene of the crime?" As they moved toward the studio, Poirot paused to glance at the garden outside, where violet petals trembled in the breeze. Something, a flicker of intuition, told him that Violet Square held more than beauty. It held deception, woven as intricately as the ivy on the walls. And so, dear listeners, the stage is set. A locked room, a poisoned glass, and 6 souls with secrets to spare. What lies ahead? Join me next time as we step into the studio where death struck silently. If you're enjoying this tale, give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments. Who do you suspect so far? Until we meet again, this is Preston Flint, wishing you a restful evening. Sleep well, but keep one eye open. Chapter 2, The Sealed Studio. The afternoon sun hung low over Violet Square, its golden rays struggling to pierce the London fog that clung to the cobblestones like a conspirator's cloak. Hercule Poirot, his patent leather shoes gleaming despite the damp, followed Inspector Japp through the elegant front door of number 7, the residence of the late Reginald Thorne. The house seemed to hold its breath, its tall windows reflecting the violet blooms in the central garden, where sparrows flitted among the shrubs. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of tragedy. Stone dust, varnish, and something sharper, more sinister, lingering just beneath. Poirot's green eyes, sharp as cut emeralds, surveyed the entrance hall. A marble bust of Apollo stared down from a pedestal, its blank eyes seeming to guard secrets of its own. Japp led the way to the rear of the house, where a heavy oak door marked the entrance to Thorne's studio. "This is where it happened," Japp said, his voice gruff but tinged with unease. "Locked tight it was. Key still in the lock, inside. No way in or out, except through this door or the windows, and they were bolted from within." Poirot nodded, his moustache twitching as he absorbed the details. "A locked room, mon ami. The most tantalizing of puzzles. Let us see this stage where death has played its part." The studio door, solid and unyielding, bore no scratches or signs of force. Japp turned the key, still in the lock, as he'd said, and pushed it open with a creak that echoed like a warning. The room beyond was a cathedral of creativity, vast and cluttered with the tools of an artist's trade. Tall windows lined the back wall, overlooking the square's garden, their latches secure. Pedestals held half-finished sculptures, a nymph frozen in mid-dance, a warrior's bust with a chipped nose. A workbench overflowed with chisels, mallets and clay moulds, while sketches pinned to a corkboard fluttered in the draught. In the centre, a heavy oak desk dominated the space, its surface marred by a spilled glass of red wine, the liquid pooling like blood on the polished wood. Reginald Thorne's body had been removed, but the scene remained vivid in its aftermath. Poirot stepped forward, his small frame dwarfed by the towering statues, and knelt beside the desk. A faint, bitter scent hung in the air. Almonds, unmistakable to one familiar with cyanide. The wineglass, now empty but stained, sat beside an open bottle, its cork resting nearby. A shattered chisel lay on the floor, its blade glinting in the dim light. On the wall above, a calendar was pinned, marked with bold ink, Harrington deadline, Oct. 15. Today, Poirot noted, was October 14th. Mon Dieu, he murmured, his voice soft as a prayer. The impossible crime. A man drinks poison in a room sealed tighter than a tomb, yet the hand that delivered death is nowhere to be seen. How, Japp? How did the poison enter this glass? Japp scratched his head, his pipe sending up a curl of smoke. That's the rub, Poirot. The maid, Mrs. Higgins, brought the wine at 7 o'clock. Thorne was alone, working on that big Athena statue for Lord Harrington. See it there, in the corner. He gestured to a draped form, its marble contours partially carved, a goddess emerging from stone. Mrs. Higgins says he took the bottle, poured a glass, and bolted the door behind her. An hour later, at 8, she came back to check on him. Knocked, got no answer. She fetched Victor Thorne and Dr. Grant, and they broke the door down. Found him slumped over the desk, dead as a doornail. Poirot's eyes narrowed as he examined the lock. It was a sturdy mechanism, the key fitting perfectly, with no signs of tampering. He moved to the windows, testing each latch, firm, unyielding. The sills were clean, no smudges or marks of an intruder. And the ventilation? He asked, glancing at the ceiling. A small grate above the desk allowed air to circulate, but it was far too narrow for a human hand, let alone a body. Nothing doing there, Japp said. We checked. No secret passages, no trapdoors. This isn't one of your Gothic novels, Poirot. Poirot smiled faintly. Yet every room has its secrets, mon ami. Let us speak with this Mrs. Higgins. Mrs. Higgins, a stout woman in her 50s, with a starched apron and a face creased with worry, was summoned to the drawing-room. Her hands twisted nervously as she stood before Poirot, who regarded her with a kindly but piercing gaze. Madame Higgins, he began, his accent lending a musical lilt to his words. Tell Poirot exactly what transpired last night. Omit nothing, s'il vous plaît. The maid nodded, her voice trembling. I brought Mr. Thorne his wine at 7, as I always did when he worked late. A bottle of Bordeaux from the cellar, unopened. I poured a glass for him, clean glass, fresh from the cabinet, I swear it. He was at his desk sketching, muttering about that statue. I left, and he bolted the door behind me. I heard the lock turn, clear as day. At 8, I came back to ask if he needed supper. I knocked, called out, no answer. I got frightened, sir. I fetched Mr. Victor and Dr. Grant, who were in the house. We had to break the door down. Poirot's fingers tapped his cane. And the bottle, madame? You are certain it was unopened? Aye, sir. I pulled the cork myself in the kitchen. No one touched it but me and Mr. Thorne. Merci, Madame Higgins. Poirot dismissed her gently, his mind already sifting through possibilities. He turned to Japp. Now, let us hear from those who were present when the door was breached. Victor Thorne, the victim's brother, was first. His painter's smock was smeared with fresh oils, and his eyes darted nervously. I was in the drawing-room, reading, he said gruffly. Eliza was there, knitting. Dr. Grant had stopped by to discuss Reggie's headaches. Nothing serious, he said. When Mrs. Higgins screamed, we rushed to the studio. The door was locked tight. I put my shoulder to it, and Grant helped. Took us a good minute to get through. Eliza Thorne, still pale in her morning black, nodded. I was with Victor. Reginald had been distant lately, worried about debts, the commission, but he was alive, vibrant when I saw him at 6. I can't believe he'd take his own life. Dr. Elias Grant adjusted his stethoscope, his voice calm but strained. I was about to leave when Mrs. Higgins called us. The door was solid oak. We barely dented it at first. When we got inside, Reginald was gone. Cyanide, I confirmed later. The smell was unmistakable. Poirot paced the studio, his steps measured, his mind a whirl of connections. He paused by the desk, noting a faint footprint in the stone dust on the floor. Small, almost imperceptible. A woman's shoe or a clever ruse? He picked up the shattered chisel, its handle worn from use, and frowned. This chisel, Jap. It was dropped, perhaps in haste, or placed to mislead. Jap shrugged. Could be an accident. Thorne was clumsy when he got absorbed in his work. Non, Poirot said softly. In a locked room, nothing is an accident. His gaze fell on a pile of letters on the desk. Creditor demands, a curt note from Lady Victoria Beaumont insisting on design changes, and a telegram, its words stark. Beware the chisel's edge, anon. Poirot's eyebrow rose. A threat or a distraction? He questioned the remaining persons of interest. Amelia Croft, the assistant, wrung her hands, her spectacles slipping down her nose. I left at 6, after preparing the clay for the Athena statue. Mr. Thorne was agitated. Lady Beaumont's demands were driving him mad, but he was fine when I left. Marcus Hale, the rival sculptor, scoffed from the doorway. I was at the Red Lion pub by 7, drowning my sorrows. Thorne stole my commission, but I didn't kill him. Check with the barman. Lady Victoria Beaumont, her pearls glinting, spoke with icy precision. I was at my estate, hosting a soirée. Reginald's stubbornness cost him my support, but I had no reason to wish him dead. Poirot listened, his head tilted, cataloguing every word, every glance. The footprint, the chisel, the telegram, clues, or red herrings. The room was locked, yet death had slipped inside. Was it suicide, driven by debt and pressure? Or murder, cunningly disguised? As the fog thickened outside, Poirot stood by the studio window, gazing at the violet garden. The little grey cells, they whisper, he said to Jap. This is no simple suicide. There is method here and malice. We must dig deeper, mon ami. And so, dear listeners, the mystery tightens. A sealed studio, a poisoned glass, and a web of alibis as fragile as spun glass. What secrets lie buried in Violet Square? Join me next time as Poirot begins to unravel the threads. If you're hooked, drop a comment with your thoughts. Who seems guilty to you? This is Preston Flint, signing off. Stay curious and rest well. Chapter 3. Shadows in the Square. As evening draped its velvet cloak over Violet Square, the gas lamps flickered to life, casting pools of amber light on the cobblestones. The fog had thickened, curling around the Georgian townhouses like a conspirator whispering secrets. Inside number 7, the air was taut with anticipation, as if the very walls of Reginald Thorne's residence knew more than they let on. Hercule Poirot, his patent leather shoes silent on the polished floor, stood in the drawing-room, his green eyes gleaming with the quiet intensity of a predator stalking truth. Inspector Japp, ever the practical foil, puffed on his pipe, the smoke mingling with the scent of wax polish and fading violets from the garden beyond. Mon ami Japp, Poirot said, his voice a soft cadence. The locked room is but the frame of the picture. Now we must paint the details, the motives, the movements, the lies. Let us begin by speaking with those who dwell in this square. For the truth, it hides not only within these walls, but in the whispers of the world outside. Japp nodded, though his brow furrowed. Right, Poirot. I've got men checking alibis, but this lot's as slippery as eels. Let's see what the locals say before we grill the family again." Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign his little grey cells were already at work. He donned his overcoat, its black wool impeccable despite the damp, and stepped into Violet Square. The garden at its centre was a quiet oasis, its violet blooms swaying in the evening breeze, their petals catching the lamplight like tiny amethysts. A newsboy, no older than 12, loitered near a lamppost, his cap askew and his hands smudged with ink. Poirot approached, his cane tapping a gentle rhythm on the stones. "Young man," Poirot said, his accent lending a musical lilt, "you see much in this square, no? Tell Poirot, did you notice anything unusual last night, around the time the poor Monsieur Thorne met his end?" The boy, wide-eyed at the detective's polished demeanour, nodded eagerly. "Aye, sir. I was selling papers till dark. Saw a shadow moving near number 7, round 6:30. Couldn't see clear. Fog was thick, but it was someone in a long coat, skulking by the garden gate. Didn't look right, sir." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "A shadow, you say? Man or woman? Tall or short?" The boy shrugged. "Couldn't tell, sir. They vanished quick, like a ghost. Square's full of 'em, folks say. Artists and their queer ways." "Merci, mon jeune ami." Poirot slipped the boy a shilling, his mind cataloguing the detail. A shadowy figure just before the fatal hour. Clue or coincidence? He moved on, approaching the elderly gardener tending the square's flower beds, his gnarled hands pruning a rosebush. "Monsieur," Poirot began, "you tend this garden with care. Did you hear or see anything last night? Perhaps an argument or a visitor to number 7? The gardener, his face weathered as old leather, paused, leaning on his shears. "Heard raised voices a few days back, sir. Mr. Thorne and that sculptor fellow, Marcus Hale, shouting in the studio. Something about stolen sketches. Last night, though, quiet as a grave, except for the usual comings and goings. Saw Miss Croft leave at 6, looking flustered. And that posh lady, Beaumont, is it? Her motor car was parked nearby earlier." Poirot's eyebrow rose. "A motor car, you say? At what hour?" "'Bout 5, maybe. Didn't see her, mind, just the car. Big black thing, shining like a beetle." Poirot thanked the man, his mind whirring. A shadow, an argument, a motor car, threads in a tapestry yet to be woven. He returned to number 7, where Japp awaited in the drawing-room. Now filled with the suspects, their faces a gallery of grief, suspicion, and guarded secrets. "Mes amis," Poirot announced, his voice commanding attention, "let us reconstruct the evening of Monsieur Thorne's death. At 7, Madame Higgins delivers the wine. Monsieur Thorne locks the door. At 8, she returns, finds silence, and the door is forced open. But what happened in that hour? Let us hear your accounts with precision, s'il vous plaît." Eliza Thorne, her black silk dress whispering as she shifted, spoke first. "I was in this very room, knitting by the fire. Victor was here, reading. Dr. Grant arrived around 6:30 to check on Reginald's headaches. We heard nothing until Mrs. Higgins screamed at 8. I ran to the studio, but the door was locked. Victor and Dr. Grant broke it down. Oh, Reginald!" Her voice broke, tears spilling. Victor Thorne, his painter's smock stained with crimson oils, nodded gruffly. "Like Eliza said, I was here. Reg and I had a row yesterday. He thought I'd copied his style for a gallery show. Rubbish, but he was stubborn. I didn't see him after 5, when I left his studio. I was in the drawing room when Mrs. Higgins called us." Amelia Croft, the assistant, clutched her spectacles, her voice a whisper. I left at 6, as I told you. Mr. Thorne was working on the Athena statue. He was upset. Lady Beaumont kept sending telegrams, demanding changes. I locked the outer door as I left, but he had the studio key. Marcus Hale, pacing with theatrical flair, snorted. I was at the Red Lion by 7, as I said. I'd confronted Thorne at 4 about my stolen Apollo sketch. He laughed in my face, but I didn't linger. Too many pints to drown my pride. Lady Victoria Beaumont, her pearls gleaming, spoke with icy calm. I was at my estate, hosting a soirée. Dozens of guests can confirm it. I wired Thorne yesterday about the statue's design, but he was obstinate. I had no reason to visit. Dr. Elias Grant, his stethoscope dangling, cleared his throat. I arrived at 6:30 to discuss Reginald's headaches. Stress from the commission, I thought. I was with Eliza and Victor when Mrs. Higgins raised the alarm. We found him dead. Cyanide in the wine. No struggle, no marks. Poirot listened, his head tilted, his fingers tracing the handle of his cane. Discrepancies tugged at his mind. The gardener's motor car, the newsboy's shadow, the locked door. He returned to the studio, his eyes scanning the scene anew. The footprint in the stone dust, small, possibly a woman's, caught his attention again. He knelt, noting its faint outline near the desk. A clue, or planted to mislead. The shattered chisel, too, seemed out of place, its blade too clean for a tool dropped in haste. And the telegram, "Beware the chisel's edge," nagged at him. Was it a warning, a threat, or a clever red herring? He examined the desk, sifting through papers. A letter from a creditor demanded payment within days. A note from Lady Beaumont, curt and imperious, threatened to withdraw funding. And then a discovery. A tiny scrap of paper tucked beneath a sketch, bearing a single word in Thorne's hand. Safe. Poirot's eyes gleamed. He tapped the desk, searching for a hidden compartment, but found none. "Jap," he called, "is there a safe in this house?" Jap scratched his head. "Not that we've found. Why?" Poirot did not answer, his mind racing. A safe, a shadow, a chisel, pieces of a puzzle, but the picture remained elusive. He questioned Mrs. Higgins again, her apron now crumpled from nervous twisting. "The wine bottle, madame, was it truly unopened? And the glass? You are certain it was clean?" "Yes, sir," she insisted. "I'd stake my life on it. The bottle was sealed, and I washed the glass myself that afternoon." Poirot nodded, dismissing her gently. He turned to Jap, his voice low. "There is method here, mon ami. The poison was not in the bottle when it left the cellar, nor in the glass when poured. Yet it found its way to Monsieur Thorne. Someone has been very clever." As night deepened, Poirot stepped outside, the fog now a thick curtain around Violet Square. He gazed at the garden, where a single violet petal lay trampled on the path. "The shadows," he murmured. "They speak, but their words are lies. We must listen more closely." And so, dear listeners, the web tightens. A locked studio, a poisoned glass, a shadowy figure in the fog. What secrets does Violet Square conceal? Join me next time as Poirot sifts through clues and deception. If you're gripped by this mystery, share your theories in the comments. Who do you think slipped past the locked door? This is Preston Flint, bidding you a restful night. Keep your wits sharp and sleep with one eye open. Chapter 4. Whispers of Deceit. The night had deepened over Violet Square. The fog now a dense curtain that muffled the clatter of distant hansoms and cloaked the gas lamps in ghostly halos. Inside number 7, the air was thick with unspoken accusations, the drawing-room a stage where grief and suspicion performed a delicate dance. Hercule Poirot stood by the fireplace, his small frame radiating authority, his green eyes darting from face to face as if reading a script only he could see. His moustache, impeccably waxed, quivered with the faintest hint of satisfaction. The little grey cells were humming, weaving threads of evidence into a tapestry of truth. Inspector Japp, his pipe sending up lazy curls of smoke, leaned against the mantel, his expression a mix of impatience and trust in his friend's methods. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice smooth as polished mahogany, "the locked room of Monsieur Thorne's studio is but the lock. Now, we seek the key, the truth hidden in your words, your glances, your secrets. The clues, they multiply, but so do the shadows. Let us proceed with order and method." Japp coughed, breaking the tension. "Right, Poirot. We've got alibis that don't quite hold water, a footprint that might mean nothing, and that blasted telegram about a chisel. Let's shake this lot up and see what falls out." Poirot's first discovery came in the studio, where he returned to comb the scene with meticulous care. The faint footprint in the stone dust, small, possibly a woman's, nagged at him. He knelt, tracing its outline with a gloved finger, noting its proximity to the desk where the poisoned wineglass had spilled. Was it Eliza's, Amelia's, or Lady Beaumont's? Or a clever plant to mislead? He moved to the workbench, where the shattered chisel lay, its blade glinting under the gaslight. Nearby, a clay mould bore a faint scratch, as if something heavy had been dragged across it. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "This chisel, it is too clean for a tool dropped in haste," he murmured, "and this scratch perhaps a clue, perhaps a distraction." His attention shifted to the desk where the cryptic telegram, "Beware the chisel's edge, anon," lay among creditor letters and Lady Beaumont's demands. A new find caught his eye. A hidden panel in the desk's drawer, revealed by a slight irregularity in the wood grain. With a deft press, it sprang open, disclosing a small safe, its door ajar and its contents gone. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered, "a safe, as the note suggested, but empty. What was taken, and by whom?" He summoned Amelia Croft, the assistant, whose nervous tic had worsened, her spectacles slipping as she fidgeted. "Mademoiselle," Poirot said gently, "you prepared the clay for Monsieur Thorne. Did he keep anything of value in this safe? Sketches, perhaps? Or something more personal?" Amelia's cheeks flushed. "He kept sketches there, sir. Designs for the Athena statue. They were his pride, unique. He showed me once, but I never touched the safe. He was secretive about it." Poirot nodded, dismissing her. A red herring emerged. The gardener, questioned again, admitted to finding a small glass vial in the garden's rubbish bin that morning, its label scratched off but faintly smelling of almonds. "Thought it was perfume," he mumbled. Poirot examined it, his nose wrinkling at the cyanide trace. Discarded by the killer, or planted to incriminate another? He tucked it into an evidence bag, his mind racing. Interrogations resumed in the drawing room, each suspect's alibi cracking under scrutiny. Victor Thorne's claim of reading in the drawing room faltered when a barmaid from the Red Lion, contacted by Japp's men, recalled seeing him leave the pub early on the fatal night, not at closing, as he'd implied. "I stepped out for air," Victor blustered, his oil-stained hands clenching. "Doesn't mean I killed my brother." Marcus Hale's pub alibi wavered too. The barman confirmed he was there, but couldn't swear to the exact hours. "I was drinking, not clock-watching," Hale snapped, his waxed beard quivering with indignation. Poirot noted his defensiveness, recalling the gardener's mention of Hale's argument with Thorne over stolen sketches. Lady Victoria Beaumont's soirée alibi held, but a guest, reached by telephone, admitted she'd slipped out briefly around 7. "A headache," she said coolly when pressed. "I took a drive to clear my mind. My chauffeur can confirm." Poirot's eyebrow rose. A motor car, like the one the gardener saw. Eliza Thorne's composure cracked when Poirot probed her marriage. A neighbour discreetly questioned, hinted at whispers of an affair with Dr. Elias Grant. "Preposterous!" Eliza cried, her handkerchief twisting. "Reginald and I were devoted. Yes, we had debts, but he had insurance, a policy for me and Amelia if she stayed 5 years. That's no motive for murder." Dr. Grant, his kindly face paling, denied any impropriety. "I treated Reginald for headaches, nothing more. An affair, nonsense. I was with Eliza and Victor when the door was broken down." Yet Poirot caught a fleeting glance between them, a flicker of something unspoken. A new lead surfaced, a maid's gossip, overheard by Japp, suggested Amelia harboured unrequited feelings for Thorne. When confronted, Amelia blushed furiously. "I admired his talent," she stammered. "Nothing more. I'd never harm him." Poirot noted her trembling hands. Guilt or fear? The motives piled up like chisels on a workbench. Eliza's potential inheritance and rumoured affair. Victor's gambling debts, hinted at by a creditor's letter. Amelia's unspoken love. Hale's jealousy over a lost commission and a prestigious art prize. Lady Beaumont's scorned advances, suggested by a suggestive note in Thorne's desk, and Grant's possible entanglement with Eliza. Each suspect, Poirot mused, had a reason to wish Thorne dead, yet the locked room mocked their alibis. He returned to the studio, drawn to the Athena statue, its marble form half carved under a dust sheet. Running his fingers along its base, he found an irregularity, a faint seam, as if the pedestal were hollow. He tapped it, hearing a faint echo. "Japp," he called, "bring a crowbar. This statue, it may hold secrets." The pedestal resisted, but a small compartment opened, revealing nothing but dust. Another red herring? Or had something been removed? Poirot's mind churned. The safe, the vial, the pedestal, clues pointing everywhere and nowhere. He gathered the suspects again, his voice deliberate. "Mes amis, the truth is like a sculpture, hidden in the stone, revealed only by careful chiseling. Someone among you has carved a lie. The footprint, the vial, the empty safe. Who placed these shadows to mislead Poirot?" The room fell silent, eyes darting. Eliza clutched her handkerchief. Victor's fists tightened. Amelia's spectacles fogged with nervous breath. Hale scoffed. Beaumont's pearls clicked softly. Grant adjusted his stethoscope. Poirot smiled faintly. "The little grey cells, they see through the fog. We are closer, mes amis, but not yet there." Outside the fog swirled, the violet garden now invisible in the dark. Poirot stepped onto the cobblestones, his cane tapping a steady rhythm. A faint scent of violets lingered, mingling with the acrid memory of cyanide. "The whispers of deceit," he murmured to Japp. "They grow louder, but which voice speaks the truth?" And so, dear listeners, the mystery thickens like the London fog. A hidden safe, a poisoned vial, a hollow statue, what do they conceal? Join me next time as Poirot navigates a maze of twists and complications. If you're hooked on this puzzle, drop a comment with your suspicions. Who's hiding the most? This is Preston Flint, wishing you a restful night. Keep your eyes sharp and dream with caution. Chapter 5. The Midnight Visitor, the clock in number 7. Violet Square struck midnight, its chimes echoing through the silent house like a warning. The fog outside had thickened into a grey shroud, muffling the world beyond the tall windows of Reginald Thorne's residence. Hercule Poirot sat in the drawing-room, his small frame dwarfed by a high-backed armchair, his green eyes gleaming in the lamplight. His fingers traced the handle of his cane, a rhythm as steady as his thoughts, while Inspector Japp paced, his pipe forgotten in his hand. The air was heavy with the weight of unanswered questions. The locked studio, the poisoned wine, the empty safe, the cryptic telegram, all swirling like the fog beyond the pane. "Mon ami Japp," Poirot said, his voice a soft cadence. "The puzzle grows more complex, the clues, they multiply like shadows, but the truth remains elusive. We must provoke the guilty to reveal themselves, no? A trap, perhaps, to catch a rat." Japp grunted, his brow furrowed. "A trap? You and your theatrics, Poirot. We've got a vial smelling of cyanide, a footprint that could be anyone's, and alibis crumbling like stale bread. But I'll bite. What's your plan?" Before Poirot could answer, a sharp knock echoed from the front door, startling the stillness. Japp's constable, stationed in the hall, opened it to reveal a folded note, delivered by an unseen hand. The constable handed it to Poirot, who unfolded it with delicate precision. The message, scrawled in hurried ink, read, "Amelia Croft stole from the safe. Check her rooms. A friend." Poirot's moustache twitched, his eyes narrowing. "An anonymous accusation," he murmured. "The plot, it thickens." Japp's eyes lit up. "Amelia, eh? That mousy assistant's been too quiet for my liking. Let's have a look." Poirot held up a hand. "Patience, mon ami. This note, it is too convenient. A trap must be set with care. We shall search, but discreetly, and we shall watch who watches us." He instructed the constable to summon Amelia, but not before he and Japp devised a plan. They would announce a search of her quarters, then observe the household's reactions. Amelia arrived, her spectacles fogging with nervous breath, her hands twisting a frayed handkerchief. "A search, sir?" she stammered. "I've done nothing wrong. I swear, I never touched Mr. Thorne's safe." Poirot's gaze was kind but piercing. "Mademoiselle, no one accuses you yet, but the truth, it hides in strange places. Permit us to look, and perhaps we clear your name, no?" Reluctantly, Amelia led them to her small room upstairs, a modest space with a single bed, a desk, and a wardrobe. Poirot's eyes scanned every detail: the faded wallpaper, a vase of wilted violets, a sketchbook filled with delicate drawings of Thorne's statues. Japp rifled through drawers, finding nothing but pencils and a locket with a faded photograph of a young man. "No stolen sketches here," Japp muttered. "Waste of time." But Poirot paused at the sketchbook, noting a page torn out, its jagged edge barely visible. "Mademoiselle," he said softly, "a page is missing. What was it?" Amelia's face paled. I don't know, sir. I sketch often. It could have been anything." Poirot said nothing, but his mind catalogued the detail. As they descended, a commotion erupted in the hall. Victor Thorne, his painter's smock askew, stood frozen, caught slipping into the studio. His hands were smeared with fresh clay, and his eyes darted like a cornered animal's. "What's this?" Japp barked. "Snooping, are you?" Victor's voice was gruff. "I was looking for Reggie's will. He promised me a share of his estate, but Eliza's been cagey. I've got debts, creditors breathing down my neck." Poirot's eyebrow rose. "Debts, Monsieur Victor? And you thought to find answers in a locked studio at midnight? Curious, no?" Victor stammered, but Poirot waved him silent, his mind whirring. The anonymous note had served its purpose, not to incriminate Amelia, but to flush out another. Victor's nocturnal wanderings suggested guilt, or perhaps desperation. But a greater complication loomed. Japp's men combing the studio found a new clue. A tiny brass key hidden beneath a loose floorboard, its size too small for the studio door, or safe? What's this lock? Japp demanded, holding it up. Poirot examined it, his fingers delicate as a watchmaker's. Perhaps a box, a case, something personal to Monsieur Thorn. We must search again. The key's discovery sparked a flurry of activity, but no matching lock was found. Another red herring? Or a vital piece of the puzzle? Then came the twist. Japp, frustrated by the mounting clues, received a report from his sergeant. A chisel matching the shattered one in the studio had been found in Marcus Hale's workshop across the square, its blade etched with Thorn's initials. "Got him!" Japp crowed. "Hale's our man. Motive, means, and now evidence." Poirot's hand shot up. "No, mon ami, too simple. The chisel, it is placed to point fingers. Hale is brash, but not so careless. The true killer wishes us to chase shadows." Despite Poirot's doubts, Japp ordered Hale's arrest, the sculptor's protests echoing as he was led away. "I'm innocent!" Hale roared. "Thorn was a thief, but I didn't kill him." The arrest sent ripples through the household. Eliza wept, accusing Japp of haste. Amelia trembled, her eyes avoiding Victor's. Lady Beaumont's lips curled in disdain. Dr. Grant offered a calming word, his stethoscope glinting. Poirot watched, noting each reaction. "The arrest, it stirs the pot," he murmured to Japp, "but the true poison remains hidden." A new clue emerged as Poirot re-examined the studio. Above the desk, the ventilation grate, too small for a person, caught his eye. He climbed a stool, peering inside, and found a faint residue of powder, its almond-like scent unmistakable. "Mon Dieu," he whispered. "Could the poison have fallen from above? A clever method, perhaps." He summoned the household's blueprints, confirming the grate led to an attic accessible from the upper floor. But the attic was dusty, undisturbed, no footprints, no signs of passage. Another misdirection? Interrogations grew heated. Eliza admitted to seeing a two-and-gate figure in the garden at dusk, though she couldn't identify them. "I thought it was a neighbour," she said, her voice shaking. Victor confessed to borrowing money from Thorn, repaid with forged paintings, a scandal Thorn had threatened to expose. Amelia, pressed about the torn sketch, admitted it was a love letter to Thorn, never sent. "I tore it up in shame," she whispered. Lady Beaumont's chauffeur confirmed her brief absence from the soirée, but only for a drive, no visit to Violet Square. Dr. Grant revealed Thorn's headaches were linked to stress over a rival's sabotage. Hale, or perhaps Victor? Each revelation twisted the narrative, muddling motives. Poirot paced the studio, his cane tapping a rhythm. The midnight visitor, the brass key, the powdered grate, these are threads, but the pattern is unclear. The killer plays a game, leaving clues to taunt us. He paused by the Athena statue, its marble eyes seeming to watch. A faint mark on its base, a scratch like a key's, caught his attention. He pressed it, but nothing gave. Another secret? He mused. As dawn crept through the fog, Poirot stood in the garden, the violet blooms now ghostly in the mist. "The complications multiply," he told Japp, "but the little grey cells, they see a shape emerging. We are close, mon ami, but the truth is a slippery thing." And so, dear listeners, the mystery spirals deeper. A midnight note, a hidden key, a false arrest. What lies behind the locked door? Join me next time as Poirot edges closer to the revelation. If you're tangled in this web, share your guesses in the comments. Who's the midnight visitor? This is Preston Flint, bidding you a restful night. Stay sharp and dream with caution. Chapter 6. Fractured Alibis. The first light of dawn crept through the fog. painting Violet Square in hues of silver and shadow. Inside number 7, the air was thick with tension. The drawing room a silent battlefield where secrets clashed like unseen swords. Hercule Poirot stood by the tall windows, his small frame silhouetted against the misty garden, his green eyes sharp as cut glass. His moustache, a perfect crescent, quivered with the intensity of his thoughts. The little grey cells whirring like a finely tuned machine. Inspector Japp, his pipe now cold, leaned against the wall, his face etched with frustration. Marcus Hale's arrest had stirred the household, but Poirot's quiet certainty that the sculptor was a scapegoat hung like a challenge in the air. "Mon ami Japp," Poirot said, his voice a velvet murmur, "the chisel in Monsieur Hale's workshop, it is a clumsy lure. The true killer weaves a cleverer web, but the threads, they begin to fray. The alibis, they crack like porcelain. Let us press harder, for the truth is near." Japp sighed, rubbing his temples. "You're sure about Hale, Poirot? That chisel's got Thorne's initials, and he had motive, those stolen sketches. But fine, let's shake the rest of this lot again. That brass key, the vial, the attic grate, what's it all mean?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "It means, mon ami, that someone plays a game of shadows. But Hercule Poirot, he does not chase shadows, he finds the light." He turned to the assembled suspects, their faces a gallery of unease. Eliza Thorne, her black silk trembling. Victor Thorne, his oil-stained hands fidgeting. Amelia Croft, her spectacles fogged with nervous breath. Lady Victoria Beaumont, her pearls clicking softly, and Dr. Elias Grant, his stethoscope a badge of calm authority. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his tone deliberate, "the hour of truth approaches. Your alibis, they crumble like the clay in Monsieur Thorne's studio. Let us revisit the fatal evening with clarity. Madame Eliza, you saw a figure in the garden at dusk. Describe it, s'il vous plaît." Eliza's handkerchief twisted in her hands, her voice unsteady. "It was just a shape, Mr. Poirot, in the fog, tall, in a long coat. I thought it was a neighbour, perhaps Mr. Hale, passing by. I was in the parlour, knitting, until Mrs. Higgins screamed at 8. Poirot's eyebrow rose. "A shape, madame? Yet you did not mention this before. And you, Monsieur Victor, you were in this parlour, reading, oui? But the barmaid says you left the Red Lion early. Where were you at 7? Victor's face reddened, his fists clenching. "I told you, I took a walk to clear my head. Reg and I fought, yes, about his accusations of copying. But I was back here by 6:30 with Eliza and Dr. Grant. I didn't go near the studio." Poirot turned to Amelia, her tic more pronounced. "Mademoiselle Croft, you left at 6, but the torn page from your sketchbook, it was a letter you said, to whom? And this safe, emptied of sketches, did you ever see its contents?" Amelia's cheeks flushed, her voice a whisper. "It was a letter to Mr. Thorne, confessing my admiration. I tore it up, ashamed. The safe held his designs, I swear. I never opened it." Lady Beaumont's voice cut through, sharp as a chisel. "This is tedious, Mr. Poirot. I was at my soirée, as my guests confirmed. My brief absence was for a drive, nothing more. I had no business with Reginald's safe." Dr. Grant cleared his throat, his kindly demeanour strained. "I was here with Eliza and Victor when the alarm was raised. Reginald's headaches were from stress, debts, the commission. I prescribed aspirin, nothing more." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "Aspirin, Monsieur le Docteur? Interesting. Let us examine this further." He led Japp to the studio, where a new clue awaited. Among Thorne's papers, Poirot found a medical receipt dated days before, listing a prescription for headaches. He summoned Dr. Grant, holding up the receipt. "This aspirin, it was from you, oui? Yet cyanide, It can be disguised in a tablet, non? Grant paled, his stethoscope glinting. Preposterous! My tablets were standard, pharmacy bought. I keep cyanide for medical purposes, yes, but it's locked in my office. I'd never— Poirot raised a hand. Calm, monsieur. We explore all paths. He turned to the Athena statue, its marble form looming in the corner. The scratch on its base, noted earlier, intrigued him. He examined it closely, finding a faint indentation. A lock, the brass key found under the floorboard, fit perfectly, opening a hidden compartment in the pedestal. Inside, a single sketch remained. A design for the Athena statue, annotated with, for VB Final. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Lady Beaumont's commission, perhaps, but why hide it? Japp's men searched Grant's office, returning with a vial of medical cyanide, its seal intact but its quantity suspiciously low. Could have been tampered with, Japp muttered. Grant's got access, motive with that affair rumour, and now this. Poirot shook his head. Too obvious, mon ami. The killer wishes us to see what is not there. He questioned Eliza again, her eyes darting to Grant. Madame, the affair, there is truth to it, oui? And the insurance policy, it benefits you greatly. Eliza's voice broke. I loved Reginald. Yes, Dr. Grant was kind, but it was friendship, nothing more. The insurance was for our debts. I'd never kill for it. A red herring surfaced. A neighbour reported hearing a muffled thud from the studio at 7, like something heavy falling. The shattered chisel, or another distraction? Poirot examined the ventilation grate again, finding no new traces, but noting its position directly above the desk. The poison, he mused. Could it have been dropped? But the attic was untouched. No, the method is elsewhere. He gathered the suspects, his voice commanding. Mes amis, your alibis fracture. Madame Eliza, you saw a figure but kept silent. Monsieur Victor, your walk is unverified. Mademoiselle Amelia, your letter hides deeper feelings. Madame Beaumont, your drive raises questions. Monsieur Grant, your cyanide is too convenient. And Monsieur Hale, in custody, may yet be innocent. Someone lies, and the little grey cells, they know. A revelation struck as Poirot paced the studio, his cane tapping a rhythm. The method, it is the key. The locked room, it was not locked when the poison was given. The wine glass, it was clean when poured. But the poison entered later, before the door was bolted. He paused, his eyes alight. A tablet, perhaps, disguised as medicine, taken with wine. Monsieur Thorne, he trusted the giver, no? Japp's jaw dropped. You mean the killer was in the room before 7? But who? Poirot smiled faintly. We are close, mon ami. The sketch in the statue, the cyanide vial, the brass key, they point to a mind both cunning and desperate. But we must test one more thread. He set a subtle trap, asking Mrs. Higgins to recount her actions again. The wine bottle, she insisted, was sealed. I poured the glass, left it on the desk. Mr. Thorne was sketching, distracted. Poirot noted a hesitation in her voice, a glance toward the garden. Madam, he pressed, you saw something outside, oui, before you left? Mrs. Higgins faltered. A shadow, sir, by the garden gate. I thought it was nothing, just the fog playing tricks. Poirot's mind raced. The shadow, seen by the newsboy, Eliza, and now Mrs. Higgins. A clue, or a phantom woven by the killer? He examined the wine bottle again. Its label pristine, but its cork slightly worn, as if removed and replaced. The poison, he murmured. It was not in the glass. It was in something Monsieur Thorne consumed willingly. As the fog lifted slightly, revealing the violet garden, Poirot stood by the window, his thoughts crystallizing. The little grey cells, They see the shape of the crime. A tablet, a trust betrayed, a locked room that was not always locked. We are near the heart, mon ami. And so, dear listeners, the alibis fracture, and a revelation dawns. A hidden sketch, a missing cyanide dose, a shadow in the fog. What truth lies behind the locked door? Join me next time as Poirot moves toward justice. If you're ensnared by this puzzle, share your theories in the comments. Who's the shadow in the garden? This is Preston Flint, wishing you a restful night. Stay vigilant and dream with care. Chapter 7. The Gathering Storm. The morning sun struggled through the fog, casting a pale, ghostly light over Violet Square. The violet blooms in the central garden drooped under the weight of dew, as if mourning the tragedy within number 7. Inside, the drawing-room was a crucible of tension, the air thick with the scent of wax polish, fading flowers, and unspoken guilt. Hercule Poirot stood at the room's centre, his small frame commanding as a general's, his green eyes piercing through the haze of deception. His moustache, a perfect arc, quivered with the intensity of his thoughts. The little grey cells poised to strike. Inspector Japp, his pipe now a mere prop in his hand, stood by the door, his face a mix of anticipation and exasperation. Marcus Hale's arrest had shaken the household, but Poirot's insistence that the true killer remained free hung like a thundercloud. "Mon ami Japp," Poirot said, his voice a soft, deliberate cadence. "The storm gathers, non? The alibis have fractured, the clues have multiplied, and now the truth begins to emerge from the shadows. Let us bring these souls together and see what secrets spill." Japp nodded, his jaw tight. "Hale's in custody, but you're right, something's off. That brass key, the cyanide vial, the statue's compartment, it's all too neat. Let's have it out with this lot." Poirot clapped his hands, summoning the suspects to the drawing-room. They filed in, their faces a gallery of unease. Eliza Thorne, her black silk trembling with suppressed emotion. Victor Thorne, his oil-stained, hands clenched, eyes darting. Amelia Croft, her spectacles fogged, her tic betraying her nerves. Lady Victoria Beaumont, her pearls glinting with icy disdain. And Dr. Elias Grant, his stethoscope a shield of calm professionalism. The absence of Marcus Hale, languishing in a cell, was a palpable void, his protests of innocence still echoing in their minds. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his tone commanding yet soothing, "the hour of reckoning approaches. The locked studio, the poisoned wine, the empty safe. These are but pieces of a puzzle that Hercule Poirot now assembles. You have each told your tales, but the truth, it cannot hide from the little grey cells. Let us unravel the lies." He paced, his cane tapping a steady rhythm on the polished floor. "First the alibis. Madame Eliza, you saw a shadow in the garden, yet kept silent until pressed. Why? Monsieur Victor, your walk at 7 is unverified, and your midnight search for a will betrays desperation. Mademoiselle Amelia, your torn letter speaks of love, but also secrets. Madame Beaumont, your drive during the soirée raises questions. Monsieur Grant, your cyanide vial is missing a dose, and Monsieur Hale, his chisel is too convenient a clue. Someone has woven a web, but the threads, they snap." Eliza's voice broke the silence, her handkerchief twisting. "I hid nothing, Mr. Poirot. I saw the figure, yes, but it was fleeting, a neighbour, I thought. I was with Victor and Dr. Grant when Mrs. Higgins screamed. I loved Reginald." Victor's gruff voice followed. "I told you. I needed air that night. Yes, I've got debts. Reg knew it. He threatened to cut me off, but I didn't kill him. That will was my last hope." Amelia's whisper was barely audible. "The letter was private, Mr. Poirot. I admired Mr. Thorne, but I'd never harm him. The safe. I only saw it once, I swear." Lady Beaumont's tone was sharp. "This is absurd. My absence was brief. My chauffeur confirmed it. I had no reason to kill Reginald. He was my artist, not my enemy." Dr. Grant adjusted his stethoscope, his voice steady but strained. "My cyanide is for medical use, locked away. I prescribed aspirin for Reginald's headaches, nothing more. I was here when he died." Poirot's eyes gleamed, his voice rising. "And yet, mes amis, the clues tell a different tale. Let us reveal some truths." He produced the brass key, holding it aloft. "This key, found beneath the studio floor, opens the Athena statue's compartment. Inside, a sketch for Madame Beaumont's commission. Why hide it, unless it held a secret worth killing for?" Lady Beaumont's composure faltered, her pearls clicking. "I demanded perfection, nothing more. Reginald's stubbornness was infuriating, but murder? Preposterous." Poirot turned to Victor. "Monsieur, you forged paintings to pay your debts, oui? A scandal your brother threatened to expose. A motive, perhaps?" Victor's face reddened. "I forged nothing. Reg was paranoid, accusing me of copying. I needed his money, not his life." Poirot's gaze shifted to Amelia. "Mademoiselle, your letter was not merely admiration. It was a plea, was it not? For Monsieur Thorne to leave his wife, perhaps?" Amelia gasped, tears welling. "No, it was foolish, a dream. I tore it up before he saw it. I'd never hurt him." Poirot's voice softened, but his eyes remained sharp. "And Madame Eliza, the insurance policy, it names you and Mademoiselle Amelia, but only if she stays 5 years. A curious condition, non? And your friendship with Monsieur Grant, it is intimate?" Eliza's cheeks flushed. "How dare you? Dr. Grant was our friend, nothing more. The insurance was for our future, not a motive." Grant nodded, his face pale. "I cared for Eliza as a friend. I'd never betray Reginald." Poirot paused, his cane tapping once. "And yet one of you did. The cyanide, it was not in the wine when poured. It was in a tablet, disguised as aspirin perhaps, given before the door was locked. Monsieur Thorne trusted the giver, drank his wine, and died alone." Japp's jaw dropped. "A tablet? You're saying the killer was with him before 7. But the door was bolted." Poirot smiled faintly. "The door. It was locked after the crime, mon ami. The method is simple, yet brilliant. But who?" He turned to the group, his voice rising. "A final clue. The footprint in the stone dust. Small, delicate, like a woman's. Madame Beaumont, your shoes, may I see them?" Lady Beaumont stiffened, then extended a foot. Her elegant heel matched the footprint's size, but the sole was smooth, unlike the patterned mark. "A coincidence," she said coldly. "I was not in the studio." Poirot nodded, his eyes unreadable. "Perhaps, but the storm gathers, and the truth will break." He dismissed the group, their faces etched with fear and suspicion, and drew Japp aside. "The footprint, it is a plant, too perfect. The killer wishes us to suspect Madame Beaumont. But the tablet, the key, the sketch, they point elsewhere." Japp scratched his head. "You're saying we're chasing the wrong scent? Hale's out. Beaumont's a decoy. What's next?" Poirot's eyes twinkled. "We wait, mon ami. The guilty will stumble, for no lie can stand against the order and method of Hercule Poirot." He stepped into the garden, the violets now bathed in soft light. A faint scent of almonds lingered, a ghost of the crime. "The truth is near," he murmured, "but one more step remains." And so, dear listeners, the storm gathers, and truths emerge. A hidden sketch, a planted footprint, a poisoned tablet. Who wove this deadly web? Join me next time as Poirot unveils the final secrets. If you're caught in this mystery, share your guesses in the comments. Who's the true culprit? This is Preston Flint, wishing you a restful night. Stay sharp and dream with care. Chapter 8. Echoes from the Past. The fog over Violet Square had lifted slightly, revealing the elegant Georgian townhouses in a pale, ethereal glow, as if the square itself were holding its breath. Inside number 7, the air was charged with anticipation, the drawing room a crucible where past and present collided. Hercule Poirot stood by the fireplace, its embers casting flickering shadows across his immaculate suit and waxed moustache. His green eyes, sharp as a falcon's, scanned the assembled suspects, his little grey cells weaving a tapestry from the threads of clues. The locked studio, the poisoned wine, the empty safe, the brass key, the planted footprint. Inspector Japp, his pipe now a restless prop, leaned against the doorframe, his face etched with the strain of a case that refused to resolve. "Mon ami Japp," Poirot said, his voice a soft, deliberate melody. "The truth, it is like a sculpture buried in stone. We have chipped away the lies, but now we must uncover the past. For it is in the echoes of yesterday that we find the motive for today's crime. Let us dig deeper, non?" Japp nodded, his brow furrowed. "Hale's in a cell, but you're convinced he's a decoy. The cyanide tablet, the statue's compartment, that shadow in the garden, it's a maze, Poirot. What's next?" Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign of his mind's relentless churn. "The past, mon ami. It whispers secrets the present cannot hide. Let us listen." He turned to the suspects, their faces a gallery of guarded expressions. Eliza Thorne, her black silk trembling with suppressed grief. Victor Thorne, his oil-stained hands twitching, eyes wary. Amelia Croft, her spectacles glinting, her tic betraying her nerves, Lady Victoria Beaumont, her pearls a cold armour of disdain, and Dr. Elias Grant, his stethoscope a mask of calm authority. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his tone commanding yet soothing, "the locked room is but the stage. The true drama lies in what came before, Monsieur Thorne's life, his enemies, his secrets. Let us explore the echoes of his past, for they will lead us to his killer." A new lead had emerged that morning, uncovered by Japp's men. A letter tucked in an old ledger in Thorne's study, hinting at a scandal from years past. Dated a decade earlier, it was from a woman named Clara Beaumont, Lady Victoria's estranged sister, accusing Thorne of blackmail. "You ruined my name," the letter read, "and kept the proof in your vault. Return it, or I will destroy you." Poirot held the letter aloft, his eyes locking on to Lady Beaumont. "Madame, your sister Clara. She knew Monsieur Thorne, oui? And this proof, it was in his safe?" Lady Beaumont's composure cracked, her pearls clicking as she stiffened. Clara was a fool, ruined by her own indiscretions. Reginald knew her in Paris, years ago. An affair, nothing more. She claimed he kept letters proving it, but I knew nothing of blackmail. I was at my soirée when he died. My guests confirm it. Poirot's eyebrow rose. Yet your motor car was seen here at 5. And the footprint, it matches your shoe size, non? A coincidence, perhaps? Beaumont's voice was ice. "I told you, I drove briefly for air. The footprint is nonsense. I never entered the studio." Poirot turned to Eliza, her handkerchief now a crumpled knot. "Madame Thorne, you knew of this affair, oui? Did it fuel your own closeness with Monsieur Grant?" Eliza's cheeks flushed, her voice sharp. "Clara was a ghost from Reginald's past. I forgave him long ago. Dr. Grant is a friend, nothing more. You twist my grief, Mr. Poirot." Grant adjusted his stethoscope, his tone measured. "I knew nothing of Clara. My concern was Reginald's health. Headaches from stress, nothing more. I prescribed aspirin, as I said. Poirot's gaze shifted to Victor. Monsieur, you forged paintings to pay debts, oui? But did your brother hold other secrets? Perhaps about a rival? Or a son? Victor's eyes widened, his voice gruff. A son? That's absurd. Reg accused me of copying, but it was professional rivalry, not personal. I needed his money, not his secrets. A twist emerged. A rumour dug up by Japp's sergeant suggested Marcus Hale might be Thorne's illegitimate son from a youthful liaison, possibly with Clara Beaumont. Poirot confronted Hale, brought from his cell under protest. Preposterous! Hale roared, his waxed beard quivering. I'm no kin to Thorne. He stole my Apollo design, ruined my career. That's my motive, not some fairy tale. Poirot smiled faintly. A red herring, perhaps, but the past, it shapes the present. He returned to the studio drawn to the Athena statue. The brass keys compartment had held a single sketch, but a closer inspection revealed a faint inscription on the marble base. To C.B. with regret. Clara Beaumont, or a misdirection? Another clue surfaced. A groundskeeper reported finding a broken locket in the garden, its clasp engraved with C. Inside, a faded photograph of a young woman resembling Lady Beaumont. Poirot showed it to her, watching her reaction. Clara's, she admitted, her voice tight. She left it here years ago, visiting Reginald. It means nothing. Poirot's mind whirred. The locket, the letter, the sketch, echoes of a scandal that Thorne had leveraged. He questioned Amelia, her tic worsening. Mademoiselle, you loved Monsieur Thorne. Did you know of Clara, or others in his past? Amelia's voice trembled. I heard whispers. Clara, a scandal in Paris. He never spoke of it, but he kept letters in the safe. I saw him lock them away once. Poirot turned to the ventilation grate, its faint cyanide residue still puzzling. He climbed to the attic again, finding a single thread caught on a nail. A silk strand, deep violet, like the blooms outside. A woman's scarf, perhaps, he mused to Japp, or another plant to mislead. Japp's men uncovered a new discrepancy. Dr. Grant's pharmacy records showed he'd ordered extra cyanide months ago, citing research. Medical necessity, Grant insisted when confronted. I've done nothing wrong. Poirot paced, his cane tapping a rhythm. The past, it haunts this house. Clara Beaumont, blackmailed by Thorne. A locket, a letter, a sketch, all pointing to Madame Beaumont, yet too perfect. The cyanide tablet, given as aspirin, betrays trust. The killer was with Thorne before the door was locked, no? Japp scratched his head. You're saying it's not Beaumont. Then who? Grant with his cyanide? Victor with his debts? Eliza for the insurance? Poirot's eyes twinkled. The echoes, they guide us. The killer used Thorne's past to mask the present, but one more piece remains. He gathered the suspects, his voice rising. Mes amis, the truth emerges. Monsieur Thorne blackmailed Clara Beaumont, keeping proof in his safe. Someone took it, leaving the safe empty. Someone placed the footprint, the locket, the chisel, to point elsewhere. Who among you knew Clara's shame? The room fell silent, eyes darting. Eliza's tears fell. Victor's fists clenched. Amelia's spectacles slipped. Beaumont's lips tightened. Grant's hands steadied his stethoscope. Poirot's gaze lingered on each, his mind closing in. He stepped into the garden, the violet blooms now stark against the fog. The past, he murmured, it is the key, but the present holds the lock. A faint breeze carried the scent of violets, mingling with the memory of cyanide. And so, dear listeners, the echoes of the past reshape the mystery. A blackmail scandal, A hidden locket, a violet thread. What truth lies behind the locked door? Join me next time as Poirot unveils the final pieces. If you're tangled in this web, share your theories in the comments. Who's hiding Clara's secret? This is Preston Flint, wishing you a restful night. Stay sharp and dream with caution. Chapter 9. The grey cells awaken. The fog over Violet Square had settled into a heavy veil, muffling the gas lamp's amber glow and casting number 7 in a spectral light. Inside, the drawing room was a theatre of tension, its velvet drapes and polished mahogany charged with the weight of impending revelation. Hercule Poirot stood at the room's centre, his small frame radiating authority, his green eyes gleaming like polished jade. His moustache, a perfect crescent, quivered with the triumph of his little grey cells, now poised to unveil the truth. Inspector Japp, his pipe forgotten in his pocket, stood by the fireplace, his face a mix of scepticism and anticipation. The suspects gathered in a semicircle were a gallery of nerves. Eliza Thorne, her black silk trembling. Victor Thorne, his oil-stained hands clenched. Amelia Croft, her spectacles fogged with anxiety. Lady Victoria Beaumont, her pearls a cold shield. And Dr. Elias Grant, his stethoscope glinting with false calm. Marcus Hale, released from custody after Poirot's insistence, stood apart, his waxed beard quivering with indignation. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice a deliberate cadence, as soothing as it was commanding. "The hour of truth has arrived. The locked studio, the poisoned wine, the empty safe, the brass key, the violet thread. These are the threads of a tapestry woven by a cunning hand. Hercule Poirot has unravelled it, and now the murderer will be named." Japp leaned forward, his voice low. "Get on with it, Poirot. Hale's free, but we've got a killer loose. The cyanide tablet, the footprint. Who did it?" Poirot's cane tapped once, a signal of finality. "Patience, mon ami. The little grey cells, they have worked tirelessly, sifting through the shadows of Violet Square. Let us reconstruct the crime with order and method. For the truth, it is both simple and brilliant." He paced, his movements precise, his eyes darting from face to face. First, the scene. Monsieur Reginald Thorne, found dead at 8 o'clock, cyanide in his wineglass, the studio locked from within, the door unforced, the windows bolted, the ventilation grate too small for passage. An impossible crime, non? Yet not impossible, for the poison was not in the wine when poured, nor in the glass when filled. It was in a tablet, disguised as aspirin, given before the door was locked. Eliza gasped, her handkerchief falling. A tablet! But who could give it to him? Poirot's gaze was unyielding. Someone he trusted, madame. Someone who entered the studio before 7, when Mrs. Higgins delivered the wine. Let us examine the clues, one by one, to see who this person is. He held up the brass key. This key, found beneath the floorboard, opened the Athena statue's compartment, where a sketch for Madame Beaumont's commission was hidden. Why hide it? Because it was not just a sketch. It was proof of Monsieur Thorne's blackmail, linked to Clara Beaumont's scandal. Madame Beaumont, you knew of this, oui? Lady Beaumont's pearls clicked, her voice icy. Clara's folly was her own. Reginald's threats were old news. I had no reason to kill him. My soirée alibi holds. Poirot nodded. Indeed, but the footprint in the stone dust, matching your shoe size, was a clever plant, non? To draw suspicion to you. He turned to the violet thread, found in the attic. This thread, it suggests a woman's scarf, perhaps Madame Eliza's or Mademoiselle Amelia's. Yet the attic was untouched. No one climbed through. Another misdirection. Victor's voice was gruff. You're saying someone's framing us? I was in the drawing room, not sneaking about. Amelia's whisper followed. I loved Mr. Thorne, but I'd never hurt him. The letter I tore up, it was nothing. Poirot raised a hand. Patience, mes amis. The red herrings, the chisel in Monsieur Hale's workshop, the locket in the garden, the huge anonymous note accusing Mademoiselle Amelia. They were placed to confuse. The cyanide vial in the garden, too, was a clumsy attempt to point elsewhere. But the true clue lies in the method. A tablet given by someone close. He turned to Dr. Grant, his eyes piercing. Monsieur le Docteur, you prescribed aspirin for Monsieur Thorne's headaches. Your pharmacy holds cyanide, and a dose is missing. You were in the house at 6:30, oui? Before the wine was poured. Grant's face paled, his stethoscope glinting. I gave him aspirin, nothing more. My cyanide is for research, locked away. I was with Eliza and Victor when the door was broken down. Poirot's voice rose, a crescendo of certainty. No, Monsieur Grant, you are the murderer. The little grey cells, they see clearly. You visited Monsieur Thorne at 6:30, offering a tablet for his headache, not aspirin, but cyanide, disguised as such. He trusted you, his physician, and took it with his wine at 7, after Mrs. Higgins left. The poison, it was slow-acting, dissolving in the wine, killing him as he worked alone. The door was locked by Thorne himself, unaware of the betrayal. The room erupted. Eliza cried out, Elias, no! Victor swore, Amelia gasped, and Beaumont's lips tightened. Grant's calm shattered, his voice rising. This is madness! I had no motive! Poirot's cane tapped once. Motive, monsieur? Oh, you had two. First, your affection for Madame Eliza. More than friendship, non? The insurance policy, it would secure her future and yours if you married. Second, Monsieur Thorne's blackmail. He knew of your past, a malpractice scandal, buried years ago. Clara Beaumont's letter mentioned a physician's error. You, Monsieur Grant, were involved, and Thorne held proof in his safe, which you emptied. Grant's hands trembled. Lies. I cared for Reginald, not— Poirot cut him off. The locket in the garden, you placed it to implicate Madame Beaumont. The footprint, you forged with a stolen shoe. The chisel, you planted in Monsieur Hale's workshop. The anonymous note, you wrote to cast suspicion on Mademoiselle Amelia. But the cyanide, it came from your vial, and the tablet, it was your hand. Japp stepped forward, his voice grim. That's enough, Grant. You're under arrest. Grant's shoulders slumped, his voice breaking. I loved Eliza. Thorne's debts would ruin her, and his blackmail. He'd expose me, destroy us both. I gave him the tablet, told him it was aspirin. He trusted me. I didn't mean for it to end like this. Eliza sobbed, collapsing into a chair. Victor muttered curses. Amelia wept silently, and Beaumont's eyes narrowed, as if reassessing her own secrets. Hale, vindicated, glared at Japp. I told you I was innocent. Poirot's voice softened. The little grey cells, they see through the fog. The locked room was no mystery. The crime was committed before the lock was turned. The red herrings, they were clever, but not clever enough. Japp clapped Poirot's shoulder. You've done it again, old chap. Clean as a whistle. Poirot inclined his head. Order and method, mon ami. The truth, it always reveals itself. As Grant was led away, the drawing-room fell silent, the weight of justice settling like dust. Poirot stepped to the window, gazing at the violet garden, now bathed in soft light. The storm has passed, he murmured, and Violet Square is at peace. And so, dear listeners, the mystery is solved. A trusted friend, a deadly tablet, a locked room undone by Poirot's brilliance. Join me next time for the final chapter, where justice is served. If you've been gripped by this tale, share your thoughts in the comments. Did you suspect Dr. Grant? This is Preston Flint, wishing you a restful night. Stay wise and dream with clarity. Chapter 10. dawn of justice. The first rays of dawn pierced the fog over Violet Square, bathing the cobblestones in a soft golden light that seemed to cleanse the shadows of the past days. The violet blooms in the central garden stood upright, their petals glistening with dew, as if relieved of the burden of secrets. Inside number 7, the air was still, the drawing-room now a sanctuary of resolution rather than a crucible of suspicion. Hercule Poirot stood by the tall windows, his small frame silhouetted against the rising sun, his green eyes reflecting a quiet triumph. His moustache, a perfect arc of waxed precision, twitched with satisfaction. The little grey cells at rest after their relentless work. Inspector Japp, his pipe now lit, puffed contentedly by the fireplace, his weathered face softened by the closure of a case well solved. The suspects, or rather the survivors of the tragedy, gathered one last time, their faces etched with a mix of relief, grief, and reckoning. "Mon ami Japp," Poirot said, his voice a gentle melody as soothing as the dawn. "The storm has passed, and justice dawns. The locked room, the poisoned wine, the web of deceit, it is all clear now. Let us gather the threads and weave the final tapestry for those who have followed this tale." Japp nodded, a rare smile breaking through. "You've done it again, Poirot. Dr. Grant's confession tied it up neat as a bow. But let's walk through it one last time. My lads at the yard'll want every detail." Poirot inclined his head, his cane tapping once on the polished floor. "Bien sûr, mon ami. For the sake of clarity, and for those who listen, let us recount the truth of Monsieur Reginald Thorne's death, revealed by the order and method of Hercule Poirot." He turned to the assembled group. Eliza Thorne, her black silk now a symbol of genuine mourning rather than suspicion. Victor Thorne, his oil-stained hands relaxed, his eyes weary but clear. Amelia Croft, her spectacles polished, her nervous tic subdued. Lady Victoria Beaumont, her pearls glinting with a chastened air, and Marcus Hale, reinstated from his wrongful arrest, his waxed beard no longer quivering with rage. Dr. Elias Grant was absent, now in custody, his confession a heavy weight lifted from the house. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his tone deliberate and warm, "the mystery of the locked studio is no mystery at all, once the little grey cells see through the fog. Let us begin with the crime. Monsieur Thorne, found dead at 8 o'clock, cyanide in his wine-glass, the studio locked from within. The door unforced, the windows bolted, the ventilation grate too small for entry. An impossible crime, non? But not impossible, for the poison was delivered before the door was locked, by a hand he trusted." Eliza's voice trembled, her handkerchief clutched tightly. "Dr. Grant, how could he betray us so?" Poirot's gaze softened. "Madame, the heart is a complex thing, and Monsieur Grant's was torn by love and fear. Let us reconstruct the fatal evening. At 6:30, Dr. Grant visited Monsieur Thorne in the studio, ostensibly to check his headaches. He offered a tablet, claiming it was aspirin. But it was cyanide, disguised to dissolve slowly in the wine Monsieur Thorne drank at 7, after Mrs. Higgins delivered the bottle and left. Thorne, trusting his physician, took the tablet, locked the door, and worked alone. By 8, he was dead, the poison's work complete." Japp puffed his pipe. "Clever devil, using a tablet. No need to tamper with the wine or glass. Mrs. Higgins swore they were clean." Poirot nodded. "Précisément. The method was simple, yet brilliant. The locked room was no barrier, for the crime was committed before the bolt was turned. But why? The motive, it lies in the echoes of the past." He produced the letter from Clara Beaumont, its ink faded, but its accusation stark. Monsieur Thorne blackmailed Clara Beaumont, Madame Victoria's sister, over a scandalous affair in Paris years ago. He kept proof, letters, in his safe, which was emptied before his death. But there was another secret. Dr. Grant's involvement in a malpractice scandal, also known to Thorne. Grant feared exposure, which would ruin his practice and his hopes of a future with Madame Eliza. Eliza's tears fell, her voice a whisper. I never knew. Elias said he cared for me, but as a friend. The insurance was for our debts, not this. Poirot's tone was gentle. Oui, madame, but Grant saw a chance to secure your future, and his. The insurance policy, naming you and Mademoiselle Amelia, was a temptation. His love for you and his fear of Thorne's blackmail drove him to murder. Victor's gruff voice broke in. What about me? You thought I was after Reggie's money. Poirot smiled faintly. Monsieur Victor, your debts and forgeries gave you motive, but your heart was not cold enough. The midnight search for the will was desperation, not guilt. The anonymous note accusing Mademoiselle Amelia, it was Grant's work to divert suspicion. Amelia, her spectacles glinting, spoke softly. My letter, I was ashamed, but I'd never harm Mr. Thorne. Poirot nodded. Your love was pure, mademoiselle, but Grant used it to cast doubt. The torn sketchbook page was a red herring, like the chisel in Monsieur Hale's workshop. Hale, his indignation softened, scoffed. Told you I was no killer. Thorne stole my designs, but I fought him in the galleries, not with poison. Poirot turned to Lady Beaumont. Madame, your sister's scandal was a shadow, but the footprint matching your shoe was Grant's ploy to implicate you. The locket in the garden, the violet thread in the attic, all distractions to cloud the truth. Beaumont's lips tightened, her pearls clicking. Clara's shame was hers alone. I had no part in this. Poirot's cane tapped once. The little grey cells they saw through the fog. The cyanide vial in the garden. The forged footprint, the planted chisel. All were Grant's attempts to mislead. But the tablet, given in trust, betrayed him. His confession, under pressure, sealed his fate. Japp clapped his hands. Neat as a pin, Poirot. Grant's in cuffs and the Yard's got a clean case. You've outdone yourself. Poirot inclined his head, his eyes twinkling. Order and method, mon ami. The truth, it cannot hide from Hercule Poirot. The room fell silent, the weight of justice settling like the dawn's light. Eliza rose, her face pale but resolute. I'll sell the house, she said softly. Too many ghosts here. Victor nodded, offering her a brotherly arm. Amelia wiped her glasses, her tic gone, as if freed from her silent love. Hale muttered about his next exhibition, and Beaumont swept out, her pearls a final note of defiance. Poirot stepped into the garden, the violet blooms now radiant in the morning sun. The air was crisp, free of the almond scent of cyanide. Violet Square, he murmured, you're at peace once more. He turned to Japp, a faint smile on his lips. The case is closed, mon ami. Let us leave this place to its beauty. As he walked away, the cobblestones gleaming under his patent leather shoes, Poirot cast a final glance at number 7. The mystery was solved, the order restored, and the little grey cells could rest, until the next puzzle called. And so, dear listeners, the tale of Violet Square concludes. A locked room, a cunning killer, and Poirot's brilliance have brought justice to light. If you've loved this journey, share your thoughts in the comments. Did the resolution surprise you? Join me next time for another Poirot adventure. This is Preston Flint, wishing you a restful night. Stay curious and dream with clarity.